So let's talk about setting your speaking fee. In this module, we're going to go over a number of things, including getting an LLC for your speaking engagements. We're going to talk about whether you should or shouldn't do free speaking engagements. We're going to talk about coming up with some criteria for what you are going to charge for your paid speaking engagements, and we'll talk about a couple of other things around setting your fee. Now, first off, I'm not an accountant, and you should always check with a tax professional on tax related issues as well as creating a business. But here's what I'll say: you should get an LLC if you are going to be doing frequent speaking engagements. And by frequent, I mean if you're doing like 6 speaking engagements a year, that is frequent enough that you should get an LLC. And here's why. When you start doing speaking engagements, you're going to be signing contracts, and you're going to write your social security number on those contracts each time you do a speaking engagement. For me, it got very uncomfortable for me to write my social security number down that many times across so many different venues that were booking me. And I didn't want my social security number in that many hands. So the one benefit of creating an LLC is that you'll get an EIN, and your EIN is what you're going to write down on the contract as opposed to your social security number. So it protects you in that sense. And that was really important to me. So that's the first reason why I say get an LLC. The second reason is that when you're doing speaking engagements, even though you're charging for your speaking engagements and making money, there are still some costs involved in doing speaking engagements. And since you're getting paid to do these things, you are effectively running a business. And so an LLC will allow you to get a business credit card so that anytime you do speaking engagements and there are costs involved with the speaking engagements, did you have to go travel to get, did you have to get gas from the gas station to drive to the event? Did you take the train to the event and had to pay? Did you eat lunch in between your speaking engagement at the venue? All of those things you want to use your business credit card to pay for, so that at the end of the year you can write those things off, because those are the cost of doing business. So when I first got into doing speaking engagements, I went in online and I created my LLC in Pennsylvania on my own for like $100. But they have companies out here for 150, $250. They'll create your LLC and make sure that it's up to code. So again, check with the tax professional, accountant, and consider setting up an LLC so that you can maximize what you're making off of these speaking engagements, write things off come tax time, as well as protect your social security number. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I'm going to start out with the question of should you do speaking engagements for free? And then we'll go into how to set your speaking fee. So doing speaking engagements for free could be a good idea depending on who you are. If you're just starting out and you don't have a large portfolio of speaking engagements, do some for free. I don't believe in I don't believe in going into debt to do a speaking engagement, meaning if you have to get on a plane and travel somewhere, you certainly should not be incurring the cost of traveling plus doing the speaking engagement for free. So when I talk about doing free speaking engagements, I'm talking about speaking engagements that cost you little to no travel expenses. So these are local speaking engagement venues that you have a relationship with, like your local community organization or church. So my first principle, if you will, would be don't go into debt doing free speaking engagements just because you think you have to build up your portfolio. Do free gigs if they're local. If you're trying out a topic idea, that would be a great reason to do a free speaking engagement. But doing free engagements depends. And here are some, like at this point, I don't do any free speaking engagements because I have about 6 books out. I've been on major media news stations and podcasts. I have social proof and credibility. I've done, at this point, hundreds of speaking engagements. So there's no reason for me to do a free speaking engagement. But still, even as someone that books speaking engagements successfully, I build in for myself to do at least one for free that's local, because I want to give back to my community. So you're going to set those criteria up for yourself. Now, you might be thinking, well, I need to build up my profile. People don't know me. I haven't done speaking engagements a lot. And, I want to get some under my belt. Then go ahead and do free speaking engagements that are local and don't result in you incurring a lot of costs. So here are some questions to ask yourself. Are you a sought out speaker? Do you have social proof and media coverage around your brand? Do you simply need to build up your resume and get more practice? In that case, you might want to take on more free speaking engagements. And do you feel like you need the exposure? If you feel like you need the exposure, in that case, consider doing a number of free speaking engagements. The problem with doing too many free speaking engagements is that people will start to devalue you. And you don't want people to devalue you. And lots of this can be word of mouth. So if you do one speaking engagement for free with one organization, then they're going to tell another organization, yeah, and she or he didn't even charge me. And so then you're going to get into this pipeline of people expecting you to do free speaking engagements. And that is what you don't want. So here are some criteria for doing free speaking engagements that I have used. And I encourage you to create your own criteria. And by criteria, I mean, if someone asks you to do a speaking engagement, you look at your list of 4 or 5 criteria. And if it meets that criteria, you say, yes, you'll do it for free. If it doesn't, then you don't do it for free. And I think it's pretty good to stick to this criteria, because you're sort of like making a commitment to yourself. You're setting a standard in a bar for yourself, and it guides you on when you should say yes and when you should say no to speaking engagement. So here's my criteria. I encourage you to use it, but I also encourage you to adapt it and create your criteria for yourself. First criteria, is it local? By local, I mean, can I get to the event in less than 45 minutes? If the answer is yes, it meets the first criteria. The second criteria for me, do I have a past relationship with them? Is it the high school I went to? Is it the church that's in my neighborhood? Is it a community organization that my son is involved with? If this is an organization that I have a past relationship with, the answer is yes, it meets my second criteria. So now that would be an organization that meets 2 of my criteria. My third criteria, do I know that the organization has limited funding? Okay, again, do I know that the organization has limited funding? Typically, nonprofits have limited funding, right? You know that nonprofits have limited funding. If it's a church, again, your local community organization, you know that they might have limited funding. And you can search online to gauge whether an organization is bringing in money or not. So if I know the organization has limited funding, that's a yes. It meets my third criteria. The final criteria for me is the event free to participants? Is the event free to participants? If the event is free to participants, it's a yes. It meets my fourth criteria. So someone emails me, they say, hey, Dr. Howard, I want you to do a speaking engagement. We don't have any money to pay you right now, but we would love to have you come. I look at my list of 4 criteria. Is it local? Do I have a past relationship? Do I know for sure the organization has limited funding? And is the event free? Yes to all 4, it meets my criteria. If there's not a yes to all 4, I'm making a commitment to myself that I have to charge something. And you still might, and when I say charge, you might give some leeway. So Maybe you tell the event, yes, I can speak for free, but you have to pay my travel. So let's say my old university, Howard University, asked me to go do a speaking engagement to a classroom that's not local, but I have a past relationship with them. I'm just speaking to a classroom, so the professor probably has limited funding, and the event is not charging people. So I might say, yes, I can do the speaking engagement for free, but you have to pay my travel. Again, remember the principle that I taught you. You don't want to go into debt doing free speaking engagements. If you can follow those guidelines, you can continue to have a profitable speaking engagement business as you're on this journey to booking paid speaking engagements. So let's talk about setting your fee. Setting your fee depends on what you're comfortable with and depends on who you are. But I'm going to give you some guidelines to help you out with this, because this is where a lot of people get stuck. A lot of times people don't talk about money, so it's hard to ask other speakers how much they charge. And so it's hard for you to get a gauge around how much you should charge. And as someone who's brought speakers onto a college campus, and I know what some speakers charge, there's speakers that have come to my university, and I know what they charge. Some speakers that are on television that I said, wow, they only charge $10,000. Some CNN contributors that have come to speak to my students for only $1,000. So it really varies, but you want to have some guidelines for yourself, because again, you're making a commitment to yourself and you want to have a baseline of what you're expecting. So here are some principles that I think are important. One, you always want to have a minimum set fee. Your minimum set fee is the absolute minimum you are willing to charge. I suggest that your minimum set fee be $1,000. That means that you will never do a speaking engagement for less than $1,000. And because this course is targeted at people with advanced degrees, you have a master's degree at least or more, there's no reason why you should be doing speaking engagements for less than $1,000, because you already at least have that credential. Have a minimum set fee. This helps you in the negotiation process later if someone is actually trying to charge you less than $1,000. Second, have your target fee. What is it that you want to be paid? So for me, I'm not on the speaking engagement circuit now. I'm working on helping people get paid to do speaking engagements and get major media coverage and visibility. So I'm teaching everybody how I've been successful at this stuff. And I also have a very young child who I don't want to be away from, so I don't want to be doing speaking engagements. But let's say my target fee is $4,500 plus travel. So the last time I was on the speaking engagement circuit, I charged $4,500 plus travel. That means my fee, the check that I'm going to get when I come off that stage, is $4,500. The venue has to pay for all of my travel, hotel accommodation, plane, train, whatever it is. So in setting your target fee, because this is very important, here are some questions to ask. What do you want to be paid? And what do you believe people will be willing to pay for you? And you want to be honest with yourself. Okay. What do you want to be paid? Start with that. What do you want to be paid? You do an hour speaking engagement. What do you want to be paid? And what do you believe people will be willing to pay for you? Now, what people will be willing to pay depends on your brand, your recognition, your social proof. Are you getting media coverage and visibility, right? We have a Power Your Research e-course about getting media coverage and visibility. That's the second part of booking speaking engagements, and the one of the most important parts in being able to charge top dollar. So check out that e-course if you're enjoying this one and finding it helpful. So write that number down. What do you want to be paid for an hour speaking engagement, which is usually what speaking engagements are going to be? 40 minutes speaking, 20 minutes question and answer. So write the number down, what you want to be paid. That could be the goal. and write down what you believe people will be willing to pay for you. Take stock of your credibility. Do you have books? How many books do you have out? Do you have any bestsellers? Do you have media coverage and visibility? Are you in demand? This is basic economics. If people are knocking down your door and there's high demand for you to do speaking engagements, obviously that's a sign to you that you can charge more. Okay. And consider, how many speaking engagements do you want to do per month? At one point, I was just doing one speaking engagement a month, and I said, I'm going to charge $5,000 per speaking engagement. So that way I can make $5,000 a month by just doing one speaking engagement. Okay. Another way to think about this is, how much do you want to be paid hourly? This is another great way that you can set your fee. How much do you want to be paid hourly? And how much do you think people will be willing to pay you hourly? And the way that you think about this hourly rate is, let's say someone asks you to do a speaking engagement. You have to drive there. It's going to take 2 hours to drive there. You have to do 3 hours of prep time. The talk is going to be an hour. You probably have to stay at the event for an hour or two afterwards, talking to people. And, then you have to drive back home. Let's say in total, this event is going to be, this entire event is going to take you 10 hours. How much do you want to be paid hourly? What is your time worth? Is it worth $200 an hour? In that case, 200 times 10, that's your speaking fee for that event. So I like the hourly model. I think it works. And the hourly model, you can shift and shape depending on the organization that's asking you to speak, because some events you have to get on a plane or a train, and maybe that equals out to 8 hours of travel. Do you still want to be paid $200 an hour? You should be. If that's your hourly rate, then that factors in to the rate. So I like the hourly model, and just stick to the hourly model. If you say your time is worth $200 an hour, well, that means you have an easy way to figure out what your speaking engagement fee is. Because when someone asks you to speak, depending on the topic, you decide how many hours it's going to take you to prep. You decide how many hours it's going to take you to get to the venue and get back. You decide how many hours the actual speaking event is. You just add those numbers up. That's your speaking fee. You respond back to the event organizer. My speaking fee is $2,000. You don't tell them what your hourly rate is. You just tell them what the flat fee is to bring you in. Okay. Again, there's your flat fee plus travel. I like to separate those. Okay. But again, that'll be a decision that you make. You might say $2,000 all inclusive. If it's somewhere that you can drive to in 1 to 3 hours, you might make it all inclusive. If you have to get on a plane, they have to pay for travel. Third thing, have a minimum set fee for virtual engagements. Right now, we're in COVID-19. All speaking engagements are virtual. Have a minimum set fee for virtual engagements. Someone just reached out to me the other day. They said, hey, Dr. Howard, we have a virtual event. We want you to speak for $500. I told them that my minimum set fee for virtual engagements was $1,000. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit later about what to do when people can't pay you your minimum set fee. But you have to have a minimum set fee to be able to have a strategy to decide what to do when people say they can't pay you your minimum set fee. So here are 3 sort of scenarios. There's going to be people reaching out to you to invite you to speak, and they're going to tell you what they can pay. Hey, Dr. Howard, we want you to come speak at this conference. We can pay you $500. Or they're going to be people that email you and they say, hey, Dr. Howard, we want you to speak. What is your fee? Or there's going to be the third bucket. Someone's going to say, hey, Dr. Howard, we want you to speak, but we don't have any money. The third scenario we already talked about. You look at your criteria. Does this meet my criteria for a free speaking engagement? If it's yes to all of your criteria, then you do it. If it's no, you don't do it. You say something like, thank you so much for thinking of me. I'm honored, but my minimum speaking engagement fee for this type of event is $1,000. Maybe somehow mysteriously they find the money, which often happens a lot, or they don't. If someone invites you with a set price, let's say they say we have $500, that's how much we can pay you. You respond back and you say my minimum set fee for speaking is $1,000. If they say they don't have $1,000, but this is really an event that you want to do, then you find ways that they can add value to you that is equivalent to the additional $500. So you can say, okay, I can do this speaking engagement for $500, but since my minimum set fee is $1,000, I want to talk about other ways that we can add some value and meet my speaking engagement fee. So this could be, maybe you need video of your speech, right? Maybe you need some updated video. So you might say to them, if you have an in-house videographer, please have them record my speaking engagement and provide me a high quality link after the engagement. If you're able to do that, then I'm able to do the speaking engagement for $500. That would be something that will be equivalent to $500. A videographer, high quality, you're getting a video out of it that you can use to then use as social proof later to book more speaking engagements. You might say, do you have an in-house photographer? I'd like high quality photos of me while I speak. That's something very valuable. You might say, I have a Power Your Research platform and I want to be able to advertise on your website. And since you can't pay me my speaking fee, I'd be willing to have free ad space in lieu of the rest of the fee. So think creatively about how you can still get your speaking fee if there is a speaking engagement you want to do, but they're saying that they don't have the money. Okay. So if someone invites you with a set price, those are some tactics that you're going to use to add more value to the fee, to bring it up to what you want. If someone asks you for your fee, you already have your target fee that you're going to tell them you pay, whether you have a standard hourly fee or whether you just have a set fee of say $4,500, and you have your criteria that allows you to figure out if you want to do a speaking engagement for free. Okay. So we've talked about, negotiating price when the venue or organization has funding issues. One other thing that I did want to say is it's always important to consider how much the event is charging. If an event says, we don't have any money to pay you, but we really want you to speak. And then you go to your website and they're charging each participant $1,000. Well, that's when you want to push back a little bit and call their bluff. Now, you're not going to say, well, I see you're charging participants $1,000. Why don't you have money to pay me? No, you would just reiterate your minimum set fee that you're willing to speak at this event is X, Y, and Z, because you've done your research and that they actually do appear to have money for your speaking engagement fee. Okay. So the last thing that I want to say is, do not do speaking engagements for free just because it's virtual. Some venues will reach out to you and say, we're not paying for speaking engagements because there's a pandemic and everything is virtual. That's not a reason to shortchange yourself and just go on a binge of doing speaking engagements for free. You still want to reiterate that you have a minimum set fee, even in the virtual environment. Okay. So that wraps up the module on setting your fee. So listen, I hope you took notes. I hope you have a little more clarity on when and how and if you should book free speaking engagements. I teach a method of booking paid speaking engagements, and I'm here to help empower you to build your brand and build your income consistently on a monthly basis by booking paid speaking engagements. And the larger course is about increasing your income by at minimum $1,000 a month doing speaking engagements. And if you're already making $1,000 a month doing paid speaking engagements, I teach you methods on how to increase your speaking fee so you can get up to 3,500, 5,000, even 10,000 a month booking paid speaking engagements. Now,